Journey Beyond Dreams, generated by StoryWave.ai.
Chapter 1. The Birth of a Sport. On a brisk autumn day, the fields across from Rutgers College teemed with anticipation. The year was 1869, November 6th, an ordinary day perhaps, but for the students of Rutgers and Princeton, it marked the dawn of a new era. The air was rife with the musk of fallen leaves and the sound of fervent chatter as the two teams prepared for a contest unlike any other. Walter, a keen observer and a visionary within the sports realm, stood on the periphery, his gaze locked on the makeshift field. He had heard tales of this football, a game of vigor and strategy, but what he saw before him was a melee barely contained within the boundaries of sport. William, clad in a simple shirt and trousers much like his Rutgers comrades, eyed the Princeton team with a mix of curiosity and competitive fire. There were no helmets or shoulder pads, just youthful exuberance and the will to claim victory over their academic rivals. "The rules are straightforward," one Rutgers player announced, trying to instill some semblance of order. "Kick or bat the ball to the opponent's goal to score, and no man shall run with the ball in his hands." William nodded, his chestnut locks tousled by the breeze. "Let's play with honor," he said. "May the best team triumph." The game commenced amidst the cheers of spectators, a chaotic dance where the ball was chased, kicked, and occasionally caught. Players from both sides collided with the ferocity of young lions, the lack of uniform rules leading to disputes that paused the action. "That was a fair catch," argued a Princeton player as he rose from the ground, his clothes smeared with the earth of the field. "I beg to differ," William retorted, his brow furrowed. There was no agreement on such a move. Walter observed the conflict, his mind alight with the potential of this raw game. The need for structure was clear, for without it, football was little more than an organized brawl. As the sun began its descent, the game unfolded with Rutgers claiming the day's victory. Yet, in the aftermath, amidst the victor's jubilation and the vanquished's resolve, the true winner was the sport itself. It had captured the hearts of all present, igniting a passion that Walter knew would transcend this single match. "We need clarity," Walter mused as he approached William. "This game, it's more than just today's pastime. It's a legacy in the making." William, catching his breath, nodded in agreement. "But how do we forge order from this chaos?" "With rules," Walter replied, his eyes gleaming with foresight. "A codex that will define the essence of football and elevate it from mere contest to strategic warfare." The seeds of change had been sown on this unassuming day. As the crowds dispersed and the players recounted tales of their exploits, the quest for a structured and strategic game began. It was a journey beyond dreams, the birth of a sport that would captivate millions in the years to come. Chapter 2. Formation of Consensus. The growing excitement surrounding the game of football was palpable, stretching beyond the boundaries of college campuses to the wider public. However, with burgeoning interest came the clamor for a unified set of rules. Walter, known affectionately as the father of American football, stood at the forefront of this movement, his eyes alight with the fire of reform. "Friends and colleagues," Walter began, addressing the gathering of influential sports enthusiasts and college representatives in a grand assembly hall, its walls adorned with rich mahogany. "We stand on the precipice of greatness. This game of football has captured our hearts, but it is time to shape it into a sport of discipline and strategy." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but not without a hint of dissent from the traditionalists who clung to the game's early disarray. William, now a respected voice among players, stepped forward to join the debate, his stance firm and his voice confident. "We honor the spirit of our past contests," he offered, "but must we not also consider the safety of our players and the integrity of the game we all cherish?" The hall was alive with discourse, voices overlapping in a symphony of passion and reason. Proposals were made, from the shape of the ball to the size of the teams, each met with varying degrees of support and opposition. "Shall we limit the players on the field?" an official from Princeton inquired, his glasses perched precariously on the bridge of his nose. "And what of the manner in which points are scored?" added a knowledgeable spectator, his hands clasped behind his back as he paced the room's perimeter. Walter listened intently, noting each suggestion in his ledger. The task was monumental, akin to steering a ship through a storm, with only the stars as a guide. Yet he remained undaunted, aware that the future of football lay in the balance. A voice of dissent cut through the din, a traditionalist who viewed the changes as an affront to the game's origins. This talk of rules and restrictions you aim to cage the very spirit that makes football grand, he exclaimed, his face flushed with emotion. Walter acknowledged the concern with a nod, his response measured and sincere. We do not seek to cage, but to channel our vigor into a game that is both challenging and just. To ignore the need for consensus would be to stifle the very growth we wish to nurture. The hours waned and the debates raged on, with every aspect of the game dissected and discussed. From the safety measures to the delineation of the playing field, no stone was left unturned. As night fell, the assembly found common ground, laying down the foundation for a game that would be both captivating and fair. The chapter closed on a day of historic dialogue, a testament to the power of unity in the face of diversity. The nascent sport of football had taken a significant stride forward, its journey shaped by those who dared to dream beyond the chaos and toward a future of thrilling competition. The quest for football's identity continued, each voice contributing to the chorus that would define the game's destiny. Chapter 3. Camp's Vision. In the hallowed halls of a stately university clubhouse, where the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and leather-bound books, Walter gathered a group of esteemed college sports representatives. The atmosphere was charged with a blend of excitement and skepticism. Now listen here, folks, Walter started, his voice steady and commanding attention. What I'm about to propose will change the face of football as we know it. He unrolled a large piece of parchment across an oak table, revealing meticulous diagrams and annotations. The assembled crowd leaned in, their eyes tracing the lines that segmented the field into a grid of strategic possibilities. This here is the line of scrimmage, Walter explained, pointing to the marked line on his chart, and we'll implement a system of downs to keep the game moving with purpose. A murmur of curiosity swept the room. William, standing tall with a newfound sense of gravitas, furrowed his brow. You're saying the ball can't be advanced unless it's done in 4 tries, Walter? He asked, trying to grasp the intricacies of the proposition. Exactly, Walter replied, his blue eyes sparking with enthusiasm. It'll require cunning and strategy. No longer will brute force alone dictate the pace of the game. But that's turning it into something akin to chess on grass, a representative from Yale exclaimed, his voice tinged with disbelief. It's all very complex, isn't it? Walter chuckled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. Perhaps, but it's within this complexity that the true spirit of the game will emerge. Think of it like a battle, each side maneuvering for advantage. The crowd buzzed with animated discussions. Some were wary, clinging to the rugby-style roots of the game, while others saw the vision of a sport evolving into something more refined. Football's been fine the way it is, a stern voice objected from the back. Why fix what isn't broken? Walter turned to address the dissenter, his voice calm but full of conviction. We're not fixing it. We're elevating it. Imagine future generations looking back at this moment, grateful for the foresight we had to build a legacy. The debate raged on as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue through the stained glass windows. Ideas clashed like the helmets of players on the field, but Walter's persuasive eloquence began to win hearts and minds. William, reflecting on the heated discourse, finally nodded in assent. I reckon you might be onto something, Walter. Let's give football the chance to become more than just a game. Let's make it a testament to human ingenuity. As the chapter came to a close, the consensus began to form around Walter's revolutionary ideas. The line of scrimmage and concept of downs were no mere suggestions. They were the keystones of a new era of football. The quest for a strategic and standardized game was in full swing, with Walter's vision leading the charge. The resistance from the old guard was slowly giving way to the promise of a sport that was both intellectual and physically challenging. Football was on the verge of transformation, and the journey beyond dreams was becoming a thrilling reality. Chapter 4. Adoption and Adaptation. The golden hue of autumn was upon the college campuses. a crisp reminder of change both in season and in the game of football. Walter's revolutionary rules had begun to take root, and the once chaotic sport was transforming into a structured contest of strategy and skill. On the sprawling green fields of Yale, where the Gothic architecture loomed grand and stoic, the football team was in the throes of practice. The players, dressed in their rugged moleskin pants and thick cotton jerseys, were a testament to the game's evolution. "Remember, gentlemen," the coach called out, his voice echoing across the field, "mind the line of scrimmage and heed the downs. This game is no longer a mere scramble, it's a battle of wits." Walter, visiting the practice, nodded in approval as he watched the team execute plays with newfound precision. William, standing beside him, couldn't help but smile at the sight. "It's something, ain't it?" William remarked, his voice tinged with pride. "Feels like we're part of something bigger than ourselves." "Indeed," Walter replied, his eyes tracking the movement of the pigskin ball as it sailed through the air. "But there's work yet to be done. The rules must serve the game, and the game must be safe." As teams across the country adopted the new format, the initial resistance softened, giving way to acceptance and even enthusiasm. However, with the new rules in play, fresh challenges emerged. An urgent meeting was convened in a wood-paneled room of Harvard's clubhouse, where representatives from various colleges gathered to discuss the pressing issue of player safety. "We've had reports of injuries, some quite severe," a Harvard official stated, concern etching his brows. "We must address this with utmost seriousness." "You're right," Walter affirmed, his hands clasped behind his back. "The protective gear must be improved, and perhaps we should consider penalties for rough play." Nods of agreement followed, though the task was daunting. The balance between maintaining the game's physical nature and ensuring the well-being of its players was delicate. A young player from Princeton stood up, his jersey stained from practice. "What if we introduced a system of fouls?" he suggested, "to discourage dangerous tactics and keep the game honorable?" The room buzzed with contemplation, the idea resonating with members who foresaw the potential benefits. The dialogue continued well into the evening, as the sport's custodians crafted and recalibrated the rules that would shape football's future. As fall gave way to winter, the changes took hold. Helmets, though rudimentary, became more common, and the introduction of fouls curbed the more brutish aspects of play. The game was indeed evolving, and with each match, it resembled more closely the American football that would captivate millions. The journey was marked by adaptation, and Walter's quest bore the fruit of a safer, more balanced sport, a thrilling tribute to those who dared to envision a greater game. Chapter 5. Cementing the Code. Amidst the echoing calls and whistles on the Princeton field, where young men clad in their distinctive black and orange striped uniforms hustled and tackled with gusto, the game of football was fast becoming the talk of the colleges. A brisk wind danced through the air, carrying with it the sounds of an emerging tradition. Walter, his hair slightly grayer than the season before, watched from the sidelines, a leather-bound notebook in hand. His vision was coming to life, but the challenge of unifying the game under a singular code remained. "Look at 'em go," William exclaimed, his eyes following a particularly swift player weaving through defenders. "They're taken to your rules like ducks to water, Walter." Walter smiled, his gaze never leaving the field. "It's a start, William, but for the sport to truly flourish, we need every college singing from the same hymn sheet." The sentiment was echoed later that month in a grand conference room, where representatives from various colleges gathered under the high ornate ceilings, surrounded by walls lined with portraits of esteemed academics. The scent of polished wood and the subtle clatter of teacups set the stage for a historic meeting. "We're here to forge a future for football," Walter began, his voice reverberating with authority, "to create a code that'll be the bedrock of the game." A murmur of agreement swept through the room, yet beneath the consensus lay a current of contention. Differences in regional playing styles and vested interests threatened to impede progress. A stern-faced man from the South stood up, his accent thick and deliberate. "Now, y'all might prefer a more tactical game up north, but we can't forsake the vigor that's made football what it is." Walter nodded respectfully. "Vigor is vital, but without a common set of rules, we risk the very unity we seek." Can we not find a middle ground? The discussions were intense, with every word weighed and measured. A proposal from a Midwestern delegate to standardize the weight of the ball was met with scrutiny, while a suggestion to limit substitution numbers sparked heated debate. The spirit of competition demands that we adapt, argued a young Ivy Leaguer, his words punctuated by passionate hand gestures. Let's not shy away from change, but embrace it for the betterment of the game. As the hours ticked by, a blueprint of the game began to take shape, with compromises made and alliances formed. The result was the birth of the Intercollegiate Football Association, a beacon of unity in a sport that had once been marked by discord. The new association convened its first official game under the crisp autumn sky, where the freshly painted lines on the field glimmered like veins of purpose. The players, aware of the gravity of the occasion, played with a discipline and fervor that honored the newly cemented code. "This is history in the making," Walter remarked, his voice tinged with emotion as he observed the spectacle. William stood beside him, his pride evident. "We've done it, Walter. We've given football its future." And so, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the field, the chapter closed on a significant moment in the sport's journey. The quest for a unified game had reached a pivotal milestone, with the code now etched into the very heart of American football. Chapter 6, Legacy of the Game. The brisk autumn wind carried the scent of fresh turf and the roar of a swelling crowd in the grand stadium that had become the cathedral of football. Walter stood, a venerable figure, at the top of the stands, his eyes surveying the field below, where two professional teams readied themselves for kickoff. "Can you believe it, Walter?" William asked, joining his old friend. The stadium, a colossal structure of steel and concrete, buzzed with the energy of thousands of fans, a far cry from their days on the college fields. "It's beyond what I ever imagined," Walter replied, his voice a blend of humility and pride. On the field, the players, armored in their padded gear and glossy helmets, looked like warriors of a modern age. The game had become a spectacle, where strategy and athleticism combined to create a thrilling display of human prowess. "Look at the precision out there," William pointed out, gesturing to a quarterback orchestrating his team like a skilled conductor. "Your downs and line of scrimmage turned it all into a chess match." Walter nodded, his gaze fixed on the field. But the game must remain true to itself, even as it grows. We have to keep the players safe and the spirit alive. Amidst the cheers and the focused gaze of the spectators, a huddle formed on the sidelines. A coach, his face etched with lines of experience, spoke with fervor to his team. "We're more than just players. We're the guardians of this game," he said. "Let's go out there and show them the power and grace of football." As the players broke from the huddle, a journalist turned to Walter, her notepad at the ready. "Mr. Camp, how do you feel about football's rise in the public eye?" Walter considered the question, his mind casting back to the days of rudimentary play. "It's a testament to the human spirit," he answered. "It shows us the value of teamwork, discipline, and the joy of competition." The game unfolded under the bright lights, each play a dance of strategy and strength. The crowd's reaction ebbed and flowed with the tide of the game, a community united by their love for the sport. Later, in the quiet of the emptying stadium, Walter and William reflected on the journey. "There's a legacy here," William said, looking around the vast arena. "It's not just in the rules, but in the hearts of those who play and those who watch." Walter smiled, the weight of his contributions to the game apparent. "Football is more than a game now. It's a part of American life, a symbol of our collective dreams and struggles." The chapter closed with the stadium lights dimming, the legacy of the game secure in the fabric of history. Walter's quest had not only shaped football, but had rippled through the culture, touching lives and igniting passions across the nation. The balance of thrills and safety, competition and unity, continued to be the game's ongoing challenge, a reflection of the never-ending quest for excellence. Chapter 7, A Modern-Day Colossus. The grandeur of the Super Bowl, a spectacle of light, color, and sound, filled the enormous stadium. The lush green of the field contrasted with the vivid hues of the players' jerseys. Walter, whose name had become synonymous with the game's origins, stood alongside William at the 50-yard line, guests of honor in a celebration that seemed as much a festival as a sports competition. Who would have thought, Walter mused, his voice barely rising above the roar of the crowd, that our work would lead to this colossus? William, now with streaks of silver in his hair, chuckled. It's something out of a dream, Walter. This game's become a national treasure. On the colossal HD screen above, historical clips showcased football legends, their legacy intertwined with Walter's rules. The players below, like modern gladiators, bore the names and numbers of these heroes on their backs, a tribute to the giants whose shoulders they stood on. Remember when we used a piece of paper to keep score? Walter asked, a twinkle in his eye. William laughed, shaking his head. And now look at it, digital scoreboards lighting up like the 4th of July. As the players lined up for the kickoff, the eyes of the nation fixed upon the spectacle. The quarterback, a figure of poise and precision, called out signals that would have been unimaginable in the game's infancy. Blue 42, set hike. His voice, amplified and echoing, signaled the start of play. The ball snapped into his hands, and with a practiced dance, the team moved as one, a perfect choreography of strength and strategy. In the stands, children with painted faces and oversized foam fingers watched with wide-eyed wonder. Parents, sharing stories of games past, linked generations through a common thread of fandom. Do you see, Walter? William gestured to the fans. It's more than a game now. It's a binding force, a reason to gather, to cheer, to feel part of something grand. Walter nodded, his heart swelling with the knowledge that their quest had indeed etched itself into the cultural fabric of the country. A coach on the sidelines, headset in place, surveyed his team with a mixture of pride and anticipation. Let's keep pushing, team, he encouraged. Let's make every play count. As halftime approached, the score was close, the tension palpable. The crowd's energy surged with every completed pass, every tactical maneuver a symphony of excitement and expectation. The legendary halftime show began, a dazzling display of lights and music, celebrating not just football, but the arts, the community, and the shared American spirit. Walter and William retreated to the VIP lounge, the sounds of the game still audible through the walls. They stood by a window overlooking the stadium, a sea of color and movement. This game, Walter said, his voice filled with reverence. It's a narrative of our nation, ever-changing, ever-thriving. William placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. And you, Walter, you started it all. Your vision gave us this modern-day colossus. As the final chapter of their story closed with the stadium's lights shimmering like stars, it was clear that football had transcended its origins. It was a cornerstone of American life, a testament to the power of dreams and the enduring human quest for unity and excitement. Walter's and William's legacy was secure, a part of the fabric of a nation that loved, lived, and breathed football.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe now and visit our website, StoryWave.ai, to start creating your own generative audiobooks today. StoryWave is the only true on-demand entertainment portal.